What's up, guys? We're back with part 2 on this YZ250f build. Good old Yamaha Monster Energy Edition. Before we get started, we thought we were going to get further on this video tonight than what we had planned. We just discovered that I am missing a valve bucket for the intake. So I'm going to have to get that ordered and overnighted tomorrow, and then we'll be able to finish up completely with the valve train at that time. I wanted to touch on something. Back on the video, I caught myself after I went back and watched the video, even after I posted it, I caught it. Real quick, I wanted to touch on the cylinder. When we installed the cylinder, as you probably caught on the video, that when I was installing it, there was not a gasket between the cylinder and the engine cases. You did catch it, however, later on in the video. I did install that, okay? There was a gasket put between the cylinder and the engine cases. Trust me, it's there. You can see it right here. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to say, oh, well, he forgot to do that. He forgot. I just want to cover. I did put it on. So, no worries. The other thing I wanted to mention, touching back onto the piston, was there's a, if you'll come in here real quick, I forgot to mention, if you remember, I told you these are marks from where my ring gaps are at, from the oil rings and the compression ring up top, and then this mark here is just where my ring gaps measured out at 0.15. So this dot right here, I forgot to make mention about how important it is to pay attention to this dot. I always color the dot in and put a little arrow on it just so I can just ensure myself throughout the complete stages of all of, doing the installation, that I always remember that this dot on these pistons, sometimes there'll be a dot, a little line, an arrow, whatever, but that signifies where this piston should be facing in correspondence to where your exhaust is at. So on these newer model Yamahas, instead of the exhaust being in the front coming down out of the header, these come out backwards and wrap around, as you see on the newer model. So it's very important to pay attention to that, and always remember to put the dot on the side facing the exhaust. Take pictures of it when you get done installing your piston, and I'll tell you why. You can go back there. Tell you why, because I have put pistons in before and got to thinking to myself, hey, did I put that piston in right? So I'll go back on my phone. Actually, I'm just gonna stand up. I'll go back on my phone for reference and verify that I did. So there's no shame in double checking your work. So this is a brand new head. Brand spanking new. Fresh off the good old assembly line. Now when you get this head, you're going to have to do a few little things to it before you can just slap it on and put your valves and stuff in. Your intake here is going to have to come off of your old head and be swiped over to the new one. Your coolant temperature sensor is going to have to be put on the head as well, along with this bolt, that bolt, important. Alright, you're going to have to also take your exhaust studs out of your old head, transfer them over here, and when you do an install on your exhaust, you need to always remember to put your fresh exhaust ring in there. It comes with your top end rebuild kit. Alright, so like I said before, this is going to be a kind of a short video because we were missing one of the valve buckets. That was my fault, unfortunately, but hey, I'll admit it when I do something wrong. So we're going to get started by installing the valve springs, valve spring retainers, and the valve guide seals. And I'll show you how I do it. Again, you don't do anything that I do. I am by no means telling you this is how you should do it. You always need to refer to your owner's manual or have a certified technician do it for you. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to take this retainer, slide it on down here. I know you're not going to be able to see this, but slide it on down there. Take the other one, slide it on down there over the valves guide. Now, again, this is me doing this. There's different ways. People do their own ways, but I like to take a little bit of assembly lube on these valve seals. Put a little bit of assembly lube on it. Then You use a paper towel in this, I just put a little bit of grease on it. That way it sticks like this. Okay. And then we're going to go straight in, straight above it, and just push. That's how you don't do it. Gentle. Just like that. Alright, we're going to take the other one. Same thing. Put just a hair assembly lube. Not much, just a little bit. That. You can do it with your finger, or you can get a small socket that fits in there, and just make sure when you do it to push straight up and down. They'll have it at an angle because the likelihood of damaging your seals are pretty high. But if you have to really push down on these things, you might want to check, make sure you got the right one, because that brings me to my next point. Your intake and exhaust are two different sizes. I don't know if you can see this on the stem, but they're two different sizes. So your seals are going to be the same way. Let's get these back ones put in first. Before we do that, we need to get it unstuck. Put these in. Slide that one in. Slide this one in. That's what they look like. Okay. And let's pop this one. Some lube, just the hair. Same thing. Just using that to stick it to my finger. And I get it on there and slightly push down. Bingo. Oh, that's okay. Come on back here. Yeah, let's go back here. Let's try this again. And there we go. All right. That's that. All right. So we can move on now. We'll install the intake valves first. Alright, for this, I also like to take a little bit of assembly lube. Now, before I do this, these are titanium valves, okay? So, again, you do this how you've been taught. I'll do it. I'm just telling you how I was taught. Titanium valves do not require lapping. There's a big controversy you'll find online whether they do or do not. Some people say it doesn't hurt them. It makes them seat better. I've always been taught and have been reading over the past years and years, titanium valves never get lapped. Stainless steel valves do. So I've never had any problems with titanium valves not being lapped. Again, that's the way I was taught. So that's how I do it. So I'm going to take a little bit of assembly lube, put it on the stem. Take my fingers, smear it all around. Then we are going to insert this in the bottom, give it a little twist. And then I like to just take my fingers and slide the valve back and forth, nice and smooth. Isn't that pretty? Alrighty. Go ahead and do the bottom one. Same way. A bit of assembly lube. Fingers. Spread it around the stem. Okay. Now we'll just slide that in there. Make sure it's looking nice and smooth. Like butter. Alrighty. Alright. Now we're going to grab, we got the valves in, got the retainers at the bottom, valve seals in. We're going to grab a spring, and we are going to make sure I have the bigger compressor. Alrighty. Take this spring, and I know I'm going to need, let me grab my pick real quick, because I don't want to need it. Alrighty, grab the spring. I keep bumping the camera with my phone, guys, so sorry if you get knocked around. Hold that there. This is going to be tricky. Tell you what I could do is let's use, I have a block of wood. Hang on just a second, baby. Alright, let's see. Oh Lord. Alright, I'm gonna tighten that down. And you're not gonna be able to see this part. I need to get the smaller one. Push pause. Hang on just a second, guys. Be right back. Alright, guys. Sorry I had to jump off camera there. Alright, so I got the valve spring tool on, got the valve spring compressed to show the valve stem. Then I'm going to put these keepers on, and sorry if I don't talk too much during this. It's kind of a delicate procedure, but I put a little bit of grease just to hold these. Then I'll sneak in here. I know you can't see this on camera, but I'll show you when I'm done. Like I said, it's a delicate process, and it's kind of difficult sometimes to do and talk at the same time. So I'll show you in just a second what exactly I'm doing. Alright, as you can see, I got those keepers in there. Now we're just going to do the same thing to that one. And what I'm doing is, once you smash this spring down with your valve spring compressor, it sticks this stem out, and then you just slide these keepers, one on one side, one on the other. And as you lift up the spring, you'll see these fall into place. And once I get them all installed, I'll take a socket that I have and I'll put this down so it's not, on the countertop or anything. I'll prop it up, and I'll take a socket, and I kind of just like to bounce up and down on them a little bit, kind of make sure they seat properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm just going to repeat the same thing I did to this to the rest of them. It's kind of same thing you do for this one, it's the same thing you do for that one, that one, that one. So I don't want to get repetitious and show you the same thing over and again. So for the sake of you being bored and time on the camera taking up space, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll be right back. Alrighty, so again, I had to do that off camera. It's kind of time consuming, and so if you ever hear somebody having to do valve work on your dirt bike and then you get a bill and it's pretty big and you don't understand why, this is just a glimpse of a start on why it takes so long, especially if you have to disassemble all this and put it back together and check the valve guides and the valves and all the seals and everything. It just takes time to take everything apart, really spend good quality time examining everything before you put it back together or have to order anything. That way you've got everything squared away and all your ducks are in a row, so be good to go for when you install it and put it all back together. So that's all we did. Just to recap, we installed the springs, put the little keepers on. I went ahead and took a socket, I pressed down all of them, make sure they're seating good, and man, let me show you. Wipe this off where I got my fingerprints on it. My gosh, ain't nothing prettier than that. Brand spanking new valves, new head, I mean new cylinder, new piston. This bike is going to be brand spanking new other than the crank, which reminds me, not there anymore. Piece of hair or something. I went ahead when all this was taken apart. I know I'm gonna get bashed by this too, because so many people say when a motor takes a hard hit like that, or a lockup, whether it's hard lockup, whether it's a soft lockup, no matter what, you always want to go through everything, obviously. But the crank is the #1 topic, because I have already explained to the customer that we've already talked about this. So before, like I said, before I get nailed on it, anytime a crank, bottom end on a dirt bike takes a hit from it being locked up, whether you're going slow, fast, whatever, especially if you're going fast. Now, if this customer was riding this bike at an enormous amount of speed, taking it wide open on a racetrack, just going to it, then I would definitely, I probably without even repair it without going into the bottom end and checking every single bearing, all the seals, replacing the crank, because that's a hard hit on the crank. But this customer was not, he was just literally driving to the end of the street when this happened. I think he was in first, second gear. He was not on it at all. No lockups are soft or hard or whatever. No, they're all bad, is what I'm trying to say, but this one was the lesser of the two. Like I said, it's not like it was wide open. I did feel the crank, the rod, everything smooth. He had no up and down play on the connecting rod, very little side to side. I did not mention this, but I did go back and look in the owner's manual according to what the specs were. I took the filler gauges and I spec'd out the tolerances on the connecting rod. Everything was fine. But I did let the customer know that when anytime something like this happens, yes, it's always a good idea, regardless if it was a small lockup or a big lockup, whether you're going 10 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. Anytime a motor gets locked up, yes, as long, the crank can feel fine, but you never know. There's always the possibility, short of replacing it, what may or may not happen down the road. To me, it felt great. It felt fine. We're going to roll with it. I've explained the pros and cons of not replacing it to the customer. We are both in agreement that we're going to roll with it. So that's that. I didn't want to be scrutinized about why didn't I tear that motor down, this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, I work for the customer, right? So, I can say what needs to be done, and we can talk about it, but I can make suggestions. That's all I can do. I'm here for you all. So that's that, guys. I'm sorry it's a short video. I'm missing a valve bucket, or I would be going into the shimming and whatnot, but we're going to wrap this up tonight. Unfortunately, we're going to have to put a part 3 on this. And we're on the home stretch now. We're going to get these valves shimmed up and then put everything back together, and we're getting close to hitting the button to see if it runs. Until next time, part 3 coming up. Y'all have a good one.